Hello, everybody, and welcome back once more to Anime Yay or Nay. I am TheOutbackAl.
I'm Yin&Jung.
I'm Chibi Noob.
I'm Envy Jitters.
I'm CheerandCosplay.
And I'm Kozi.
And we're not quite doing Oops All Caesars yet. We had a thing to do before that. We watched the Netflix adaptation of Avatar.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about it.
Which is ironic because it's the live-action adaptation of something people think is anime, but isn't anime. And it's like the king of, it's clearly anime, or it's basically anime.
It is basically anime.
Yeah.
More or less.
I mean, and more importantly, it's a show that I think I gotta read everyone enjoyed. The cartoon. Cartoon.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. Good cartoon.
Let's not spoil what everybody thought out the gate.
Could you feel like the death glares through?
I could feel a very heavy pause,
Just
but
the silence.
Envy, you were saying?
Well, I'll get into it later when we ask our thoughts.
Well, I mean, where do we want to start here? Do we just want to go into plot, or do we want to go into opinions, or what do we feel like doing?
General first impressions.
General first.
I guess that's the best way to do it.
General first impressions. It's better than the Shyamalan.
Yeah.
Like, without a doubt, we could also probably say that.
Ow, the bar is in hell.
I know the bar is very low, but it's worth mentioning.
Sure.
At the very least. You gotta give credit where credit is due.
The
I didn't
CG
enjoy
is bad.
myself.
Yeah, CG's bad.
I'm not willing to hold that against a whole lot of people. I gotta be real. CG's... I don't think most CG is believable anymore, and part of that is overworked production things, way too short of schedules, and I think we're all just so used to seeing CG, it's easy to pick out.
Oh, yeah.
Not all of it here is great, for a number of those reasons, but I'm not willing to hold that against anything nowadays. I was not entirely happy with what they did with the story.
Yeah.
Of a show that's almost straight up perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much the short of it.
The wigs are bad.
Well, yeah, well, some of them are okay.
Zuko's scar looks like eyeshadow.
Okay, at least he had a scar. Again, I don't want to bring up Shyamalan too much, but he had a scar at least.
Okay, yeah, true. And at least Aang's tattoo is blue.
I will say that I'll kind of say the same thing that I said for like things like Bebop and things like One Piece and all that. I do think the production design looks good. I think for a visual, like, okay, this is how an Avatar adaptation should look. The costumes feel right. A lot of the hairstyles, the makeup, and a number of other things, they feel right for the most part. There's a couple hiccups here and there.
One question?
Sure.
How many episodes did everyone watch?
I watched the whole thing.
I watched 2.
I watched the whole thing.
I watched first 3 episodes and then part of episode 4, and at that point I was like, okay, I'm tired.
Yeah,
okay, so Al, what part of Boomy looked like it should have to you?
The fight scene.
No, it did not!
It looked better than the rest of his costume did. I've got to give people credit anywhere I can. I'm a very silver linings person. I apologize for that. I try to be an optimist.
They CG'd an old fucking man, and then they CG'd his armpit hair.
What?
Very badly.
Did they?
No, I'm pretty sure that was mostly makeup. That's a young guy playing him.
Yeah, that is a young guy.
Yeah, that's the dude from Ghosts.
Wait, why'd they get a young guy?
Yeah.
Because
he could do the voice.
a 100-year-old man can't do the fight scene.
That too.
Yeah.
They needed him to look ripped.
Okay.
How about everybody else? I'm still, like, gestating a number of things.
All right. Are we doing, like, things that we thought were good?
Initial impressions, I guess.
Okay, initial impressions. I guess I'll go since I'm after you.
Sure.
You know, it was kind of mid to me. Like, I do think, of course, it was better than Shyamalan version, but I don't know. I just feel like it was too on the nose, the dialogue. That was my main issue with it. Like, they explained the characters' arcs in their first sentences that they speak in the first episode. Like, I just feel like they just say too much, and it just doesn't feel realistic, whereas I don't feel like they had to do that in the cartoon. So it's just annoying how much, like, they wear their hearts on their sleeves even characters like Zuko, it's just kind of weird. I don't know.
It feels weird
Turns
because
me off.
they wore their hearts on the sleeves a lot of times in the actual show.
But like,
it felt
not
natural.
as on the nose.
It's
yeah,
prequels
just
dialogue.
Like, it's just weird dialogue. But, you know, I kind of liked how they showed, for instance, when the firebenders killed off all the airbenders. I thought it was interesting to see that. I kind of liked the beginning with, like, introducing Aang and stuff. So I thought that was an interesting addition. I'll give them that. But the rest of the way that the episode went wasn't great. I mean, it was done better in the show. Like, how he woke up and he learned that they were all killed off was done better in the show than it was in the... I mean, it was just rushed. I mean, everything was just condensed and rushed.
You mean with Info Dump Grandma?
And with Info Dump Grandma. And I didn't like the way... I mean, Sokka and Suki were weird, man. Like, what was their relationship?
I got a whole...
It was one of the worst things that... I only watched the first 2 episodes, so I don't know how much worse it got, but that one was one of the worst mistakes that I saw.
It stayed pretty much the same.
Okay, so there were ups and downs, I'm guessing, because there were some things I thought were done pretty well. You know, I feel like the actors were fine for the... You know, it's just they were given bad dialogue, and I don't know. It just... None of
children.
it... Yeah, they're children, so it's not going to be the best.
Even some of the adult characters got nothing to work with here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. Like
some of that acting was, or at least the dialogue and like the intonation was pretty stilted and clunky.
Right.
I gotta be real. Danny Putty's in here.
Oh yes.
Abed from Community. I love him. He's usually great. All of his dialogue, pure exposition. Pure info dump, pure just...
So he had nothing to work with, right?
No, he had nothing to work with.
No.
And he's like a dude with a son who's like in a wheelchair, and he's like, there's a whole lot of plot going on around him. Got nothing to work with the dialogue.
Yeah, so it's like even good actors, they didn't really have anything to work with, so I can't really blame them very much. But the costumes looked really good, aside from some of the weird wigs. I did see the Moon Princess, whatever, her wig later on, and it looks so bad. But
it doesn't look like it does in the show, and it didn't look like a penis in the movie.
But it looks like I don't know. It looks like a cosplay wig, like a not so great cosplay wig. I gotta be honest. It doesn't look like a movie wig, you know. It's like, I hate to say it.
But if it looks like a movie wig, it looks like a penis.
Stop.
No, it literally.
It was a penis. We've all made fun of it.
Al would normally bring up that image, but I don't think he could bring it up because it does look like a penis.
Trust me, there's a censor bar over it right now.
Okay, fair. But you know what I mean? Some of the quality was kind of meh, but most of it looked pretty good, and I liked the designs. It was true to the show. Like, I think they did a good job of making the characters look like they do in the cartoon, which I appreciate, you know, but the dialogue, bro, that's my main issue. So that's what I have to say.
So my impressions are that this is a show that is more concerned with looking good than actually being good.
Yep.
Like, as we've already talked about the dialogue, like, you know me with, like, execution and, like, particularly with anime, how I really will harp on dubs because I'm very picky about how they intonate certain lines and how they actually say them. This was one of those cases as well, and it's worse because they're actually acting. And I partly want to blame direction on that, but sometimes it's a little bit, also some of the actors are kind of young, so they're still sort of like starting off. Aang's performance was a bit jarring, to say the least. Because I don't know, it sounded like how he was saying his dialogue was not how I would picture a 12-year-old saying those particular words. But maybe that's just me. But I don't know. I enjoyed the fight choreography, and I got to admit, episode 1 was okay, aside from all the exposition dumps. Once we got into episode 2, though, I was kind of like, is this a rush job? And once we got to episode 3, I was like, wait, why are you here? Why are you here? Danny Pudi, I'm glad to see you, but why are you here?
That was my exact reaction. I think I might have actually said those words while I was watching.
Yeah, because, like, Jet and his crew and then Boomy and everything in Omashu, and then Sai and his son, Tao?
Yeah.
And then for some reason, Secret Tunnel.
Yeah, Secret Tunnel. Like,
That's not even a season 1 thing.
It's not a season 1 thing. It's a season 2 thing.
Season 2.
As is Azula, but hey, whatever.
Yeah, and then she's here, and I'm just like, some of you are not supposed to show up till season 2 or season 3. Why are you here? Like, I understand they're trying to condense down the timeline.
Oh, God.
But
you don't want to see the ending of
I'm
this
already
season.
unhappy with Azula at this point, because I'm just like, no, go away. You're not supposed to be here yet.
Can I spoil?
No.
Are you really spoiling? We've all seen the original show.
I think it can't be that
here's
different.
the thing. It does do the show. It just does it mostly out of order.
I think I don't
It ends
mind.
where you think it ends.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind.
No, the fuck it did not. Did you watch the after credits?
Oh god, there was after credits?
Oh.
I did not want to stick
was
around.
it the immediately right before / in the middle of credits?
Keep talking. I'll go look.
Yeah. Yeah, they did a thing where...
Did you see the scene with Azula at the end?
Oh, yeah. I was going to get to that later.
Okay.
Keep going, Chibi.
So, well, now my train of thought stopped. Thank you.
Well, that's about how this production went, I think.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, most of it was just kind of like, I understand, like, condensing things down, because instead of, how long were the seasons in the original show? Like,
Okay.
20
I did the math. I did the
20
math on this.
episodes?
Do you want to hear this? So, yeah. They're about... Each episode of the original show is like 23 minutes. Figure 22 if you take away the end credits, opening scene, and the occasional previously on Avatar section. You get 22 minutes apiece. There's 20 episodes. That's 440 minutes. That's 7 hours, 20 minutes. Do you know how long these episodes were? They vary between 47 and like 63 minutes. I counted it out. It's 7 hours, 13 minutes. They are 7 minutes shorter than the actual show. How did they have to cut so much?
I think they were focusing way too much on the visuals.
They cut so much because they were too busy trying to rewrite it
Yeah,
into
that
something
too.
different, because they wanted it to be dark and edgy.
I don't even know if that's the thing about it, because when you think about
It's
it, the show itself is dark in a lot of spots.
Yeah, and honestly, like, this did not come off dark and edgy to me. This just came off boring.
I think they were trying to make it more like epic or something, you know?
The thing is like, this didn't even feel epic.
I think they're
like,
trying to, though.
Well, the only reason why Kozi brought up dark and edgy is because it was either a producer or a showrunner. They said they wanted this show to be like Game of Thrones. So
No.
Oh,
no.
everybody says that. That's corporate bullshit that they always spew in interviews just
The
to be like,
next Game of Thrones.
Yeah, this was the most popular thing for like 10 years. So we're going to be everyone wants to be the next. It doesn't mean shit.
Here's the thing.
I don't think
This
they
was-
meant the next. I think they meant they were trying to style it like Game of Thrones.
But this was a kid's show to begin with. Why would you style it to be so?
Yeah,
That's
why they blatantly showed the murder.
Yeah.
Because the original fans are adults now.
I mean, I understand that, but at the same time, you don't need the acts of violence to be on the screen in order for it to have the same impact.
I don't even know if
Like, it
this...
still is impactful.
I don't think it really
I don't
gave
know,
me,
like-
like, Game of Thrones vibes or anything, but I don't know.
Like, they're
You
trying
did
to
not-
make it more violent and more adult is kind of what that sentiment is supposed to be.
It's like what a teenager thinks adult is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt more childish because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't need to show the actual massacre of the air nomads for it to be impactful,
Mm-hmm.
because Aang finding Gyatso's fucking skeleton is on its own super harrowing and, like, jarring for that episode.
Yeah.
And I think, like, granted, I'm thinking they're probably going with, oh, everyone knows that this has already happened, so when that showed up in, like, what was it, episode 3
1.
of the original? Episode 1?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking
No,
about
of
the show.
the
My apologies.
original.
It was episode
Yeah, the
3.
original was episode 3.
Yeah, so when it showed up in episode 3 of the original show, that was like sort of real gut-wrenching, but they're assuming that everyone already knows this who's coming in to watch this show.
I
so
agree
they're like,
with you, but
let's just show you the fight scene. But we didn't need it. It took up time. And granted, beautiful visuals, good fight, but we didn't need it.
I didn't mind it personally. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, general thoughts were like, this show was trying to do something, but generally with either whether it's like lackluster direction or acting, and just overall just trying to like give you a vibe rather than actually just being a good show, like this was kind of eh.
Yeah, I can't believe they saw that there's this beloved show. They saw the live action movie, saw that everybody was like, we don't like this. This isn't Avatar. And they were like, okay, we're gonna remake it, but this time we're gonna do not Avatar again. And they're like, wait, why don't people like it?
I agree and disagree with everything you just said. Because I think they did, but it's not what they did, it's how they did it. I think. Like, you know what? Save it till everyone's done with their opening stuff. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go into a big thing. I don't know.
MB, your first impressions.
Come to me last because I know I'm going to be the only one that genuinely liked this show, and I have a different perspective. So I want to say I want to get the bashing out of the way first, and then come in with my only positive opinion.
Okay.
Okay. I feel like the original show, maybe it was just because it was a cartoon and it was for kids, but like it still had whimsy in there mixed in with the dark stuff.
Yeah.
And they took it out of this show.
Yeah.
And I feel like all those lighthearted moments, they make the darker ones much heavier because they remind you that they are just kids and they shouldn't have to be going through this shit.
Oh.
And then
It is so much worse in the final episode.
and then in the live action show, it's just kind of heavy all the time. There's no up and down. It's just kind of down. And I think it really takes away from it. Oh, also, one other thing.
Yes.
This isn't a general opinion. This is a specific observation. Friend of the show, he asked me not to tell everybody this, but I don't think he listens to the show, so I just won't say his name. But you know him.
Well, you're not going to say it anyway. I'm going to have to bleep it if you do.
Yeah, exactly. He said he watched the show and he could not help but notice that
Lieutenant G.
Yeah, Zuko's first lieutenant looks a lot like an Asian version of Al.
Oh?
The fuck?
What does that mean?
Now pull up a picture of Lieutenant G
Okay.
and tell him he's wrong.
I did not see it at all.
No.
I can see it. It's very specifically like the eyes and the eyebrow shape.
I don't see it.
Wait, what?
This is the face reveal if you just picture him like whiter and far less hairy.
What?
I don't see it.
I don't see it at all.
I do not have that powerful of a chin.
It's a very different man.
I wish I had that chin.
He has a good chin, for sure.
I did not realize he was supposed to be that character.
Yeah.
Okay, here's where I'm gonna surprise you guys.
Oh.
I prefer the Shyamalan movie.
Oh,
I think it was better.
It was shorter.
Okay.
Wait,
It
but
was
what
shorter.
was better?
I feel like I cared more about the characters. They had more chemistry. This felt just as rushed, with 7 hours of time as the movie was. Except it was drug out. And like, I was already struggling after one episode. I came in and out for episode 2, and then I watched the rest today when I got home from work. And every episode that it went, I just got more and more upset.
So you basically did with Al what Al did with the live action Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you guys at least got the entertainment of watching me get angry at it.
Yeah, we all watched something together and we got drunk doing it.
Yeah, and Bebop had potential. Like, almost straight out of the gate, they took the expectations and they kind of shot it. They're so focused on their very shitty CGI
I don't.
And moving around the plot, trying to, like, make it their own thing, because I don't want it to be a one-for-one rendition. That, like, they lost kind of the magic that made Avatar. Like, how bending is supposed to be, like, different forms of... It's just martial arts, correct?
Yeah.
And, like, they started incorporating that with the firebenders.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, yay! And then they immediately stopped doing that, except for Zuko. Like, Zuko's scenes where he was fighting were all very well choreographed and incorporated that. But bending became, look at how my hands grip the air!
Can I throw out, I understand where you're kind of coming from there, but like I do think to some degree there is a bit of a difference in some of the ways that people do these kind of things. In world, I mean. When you look at some of like the basic firebender soldiers, even in the show, they're not actually that skilled. They can throw a fireball, but that's about it. When you're looking at someone like Zuko, who has had a lot of personal training, he's the expert martial artist, like a lot of these other characters that we kind of follow.
Katara does almost no kind of like forms.
I know.
Again, it's just dramatic air gripping.
A little bit.
Boomy does almost no forms. Again, it's just dramatic air gripping. Their hands aren't even supposed to be open.
I hear you.
I think it looks a little better than the movie, though. I got the air bending and all the bending looks a little better. I'm just gonna say it.
Katara hits with all of the ferocity of a magic carp, and we're expected to believe it hurt.
I hear you, but at the same time, it's based on Tai Chi. It's not a hard-hitting style. Like, if you're talking about the firebenders, the firebenders are very, like, that's Northern Shaolin Kung Fu. That is a very, like, kinetic style.
She splashed water on people. It did not look like it hit them. It looked like it was dumped on them.
Well, yeah, they gotta add some real water in there, otherwise it's not gonna look right. How are you gonna hit someone with water and they look dry?
I'm saying it didn't look like they were being hit. It just looked like they were being splashed with water. And we're supposed to believe that fended off a fucking badger mole?
But it didn't.
Which also, don't get me started on the badger mole, because what was that?
It was a badger mole. Big old badger mole.
That is not
they live in
what the badger moles looked like.
Oh god, we haven't talked about the hippies yet.
I didn't get that far.
No, you didn't.
Same.
The whole secret tunnel thing, like, beyond that being like a season 2 thing, that shouldn't have been there.
Yeah,
it should not have been done how they did.
We can get to that a little bit later when we talk about like actual plot. Let's just stick to just the impression stuff.
So again, like, I think my biggest thing is they kept trying to move parts of the plot around, and how they were moving it around makes it so none of it really makes sense. And it felt so rushed for something that had almost the same runtime as the actual animated show, but felt as rushed as a 1.5 hour movie. They tried to do something and it just didn't work. And again, like, I get wanting to make something your own, but when the chief complaint against the movie was they took Avatar and made it not Avatar, we would have liked a more faithful rendition. Why would you then go, I hear you, but I'm gonna do what I want to do anyways.
Alright, gather round, children, and listen to NV Jitters set his tale for what he thought of a 2024 Netflix adaptation. To start off, I will have a preamble. The original show from Nickelodeon. It is not only one of my favorite shows of all time, it's one of my favorite fictional stories of all time. It is my second favorite fictional universe behind Star Wars. So, needless to say, I am a massive fan.
High praise.
And I went into the 2010 movie with all the hype in the world because I had no idea who M. Night Shyamalan was back then. I just thought, holy shit, we're seeing this in live action. And you know how there was the term Phantom Menacing, where people saw the Phantom Menace and then gradually disliked it more and more the more they thought about it? That was my reaction to The Last Airbender movie. Because I went out of the movie in the theaters thinking it was all right. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, wow, this is shit. Minus a few things. So, cut to the announcement of the show. And I've been monitoring the development of this show from the beginning. Originally, the two co-creators of the show were involved, and then they famously left over creative differences.
Mm-hmm.
Then later on, they talked more and more about the show, and you know how there's 1,001 hate YouTubers that like to comment and bitch about every single little thing? Well, they kind of did that for this show. They complained about every single little thing that was brought up by one of the producers, when a lot of times it was done without context. So I knew going into the show that I was going to like it more than the Shyamalan movie, because again, you would have to try hard to make me dislike it.
You would have to try to make it bad.
Yeah, honestly.
I know what Kozi just said, but that's just how I feel. But anyway, I went into the show knowing that it wasn't going to be 1-to-1, because they already mentioned that they were changing things up from the get-go by having Azula and Ozai show up in season 1, and I knew going in that they were trying to tell their own version of certain events of the story. That's why certain characters are in certain different places at certain different points in time. Now, when it comes to an adaptation, I was debating, how do I judge this? Do I judge this purely based off of what do I expect from the original show compared to this new adaptation? Do I want it 1-to-1, or do I want them to make changes to try and make it their own? If I say yes to the former, then obviously I should hate the show, because that's one of the reasons why people didn't like the Cowboy Bebop adaptation, for example, because they changed so much, it actively made it worse compared to the other show. On the other hand, if they change certain things, do I just judge it if it wants to tell its own version of the story? And how would I judge the show if I've never seen the original show and just judge this show for its own merits, for its own world building, its own characters? So I tried to look at both approaches when I looked at this show. And after watching 8 episodes, I actually did like the show. I didn't love it. There are things about the show that I do not like. However, I think the main themes that they wanted to tell regarding Aang in particular, about how I get it. He's not the fun-loving kid. He's not going off penguin sledding, and he's not going off doing the spinny air marble trick at Kyoshi Island. I get that, and believe me, I would have liked a little more levity of the show too. But I think for this version of Aang that they wanted to tell, based on his own personal journey from start to finish, basically, what does it mean to be the Avatar? What does it mean to judge the responsibility of being the Avatar? To me, in my personal opinion, I thought it was done well. You guys might disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. We can respectfully disagree. Same thing with some of the other characters in the show. I think for some of their arcs, it worked well. For some of them, it could have been better. The version of Prince Zuko and Prince Iroh, some of the stuff they added to their story this season, I really appreciated. And some of the stuff, I was like, wow, this is really good. I thought Ozai's characterization in this show, I thought it's a unique approach, and it's definitely not the Mark Hamill Ozai that we know from the cartoon. But I actually liked the different version of Ozai that we got. Same thing with Azula. Her characterization is a lot different than what we expected from the original show. Again, if you liked the original show version of her better and thought her story worked better that way, that's perfectly fine. But judging it on its own thing, I thought it worked well on its own. So basically, I'm at a standstill. Do I judge it based purely on the original show, or do I judge it on its own merit? I did a little bit of both. And with that end, I'm kind of a pie show piece. It has a good side and a bad side, but it's how you play it that determines what you think of the move. And for me, it's a little bit brighter on this pie show still for me, but I can understand the darkness. So I would give it a 7.5 out of 10 if I was going to rate the show. Thank you very much, and tell me how wrong I am.
I think you should that should have been your own video right there. That was great. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
honestly,
that was a good argument.
That was some really good shit. Did you write that down, or like what was up?
That was I thought about it last night as I finished watching the show on Wednesday, and I started thinking about what I would say.
In bed.
No, it was but I started thinking about what I would say during the podcast Wednesday night, but yeah, everything I just spoke was basically off the cuff.
It might have been one of the best, just spiels that we've had on this podcast. Kudos.
All right, go ahead.
I may disagree with a couple of those points, but I'll wait for a moment.
So I get what you mean about liking that this kind of grappled with, what the weight of being Avatar is and what it means to be Avatar. But I raise you the point of that was what Korra was. And Korra handled it much better. I feel like if that was what they wanted to do, then a live-action adaptation of Korra would have been more suited for this.
The fan base isn't ready for that.
No, they're definitely not.
Whether or not Korra's a good show.
Plus, I mean, it's a little difficult to have the Korra show without having the show
Yeah,
first.
it'd be kind of weird.
Yeah.
I also feel like if they wanted to make it darker and edgier, Korra is the place to do that, because I feel like it did go a bit or a lot of a darker route.
That's also fair.
I think the things that you're spinning as positive for this don't match an Avatar adaptation.
That's why I said, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. We're having a healthy discussion. I'm just saying that's why I was so divided on whether or not to judge it on its own merit versus judging it as an adaptation, and that's why I did a little bit of both. Obviously, if I compared and contrasted every single thing that they changed or adapted, I'd probably pick the original show 99% of the time. So, I knew it was going to be pointless. So that's why I did a little bit of both. It's like, okay, basically every change they made, I was like, okay, how much do I fundamentally disagree with this, or am I okay with this? And 6.5 to 7 times out of 10, I was fine with it. The other 3.5 to 4%, or 4 times, I was like, no, why are you doing this? So that's why I'm a little bit mixed.
Maybe I'd like to discuss this with you a little bit, because I agree with the mindset you're coming into this with, and I do think, I probably did allow my far better enjoyment of the original series kind of flavor a little bit more, because I guarantee you, anytime they were doing some stuff out of order, I was like, why is this here right now? Why are you doing this? But at the same time, I'll also try to look at it from the perspective of, okay, this is its own thing. It's doing its own thing. I also don't know that it entirely works like that, though, for me. How they presented it here. I mean,
that's fair.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, and I hate to say this, a lot of it comes down to how they decided to incorporate certain characters at certain times in places that are out of order a little bit. And I think...
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair, I agree.
I think what happened here is not dissimilar to what happened with Bebop, but they went about their problem in a different way. I think a big problem with adapting Bebop and this show is that you're translating a 22, 23-minute show, a very tightly written 22 to 23-minute shows, into an hour-long format. And the way Bebop went about that was, we're going to take this 22-minute plot and stretch it to an hour and just fill it up with bullshit. Not a good way to go. This took a different route. It was like, okay, we're going to take multiple plots from multiple 22 to 23-minute episodes, and we're going to mush them into one episode. Now, I think they did that with One Piece, but the reason that could probably work better is because One Piece is a more serialized show than the first season of Avatar, where you have multiple episodes are just kind of following the same arc, so smushing them together into an hour makes a little more sense. Versus here, other than the first 2 episodes, the last 2 episodes, and I think the Spirit World section in the middle of season 1, everything's a standalone episode. It tells a beginning, middle, and end on its own. It's self-contained, and even though there is a continuity to it, for the most part, I think you could watch a lot of the episodes in season 1 almost out of order without any real issue. But when you start taking plots from one episode and then mushing half of that into this episode, and then another half from something else and all this other sort of stuff, you don't have the clean beginning, middle, end, and character arc for a lot of the characters in those episodes in these episodes. So, we're talking about... I'm specifically mostly talking about the character arcs and elements here.
Yeah,
If we want to take one Like, I just want to talk about The Mechanist. The Mechanist has his own episode that is about Aang. And Aang learning to deal with the fact that the world has changed. It's moving on a little bit. The world is going to adapt and it's going to become something else over time. And I need to be able to deal with the fact that even though I want to try to keep my culture and my history alive, things are going to change and some things are going to come in to replace it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. We lost that story and that character arc completely because they decided to put him in Omashu and not have anything with the Northern Air Temple. Like, that's really where I think...
even though the kid had the glider still.
Yes, and I was like, as soon as that episode started where they're like, oh my god, that's another airbender. I'm like, are they doing this early? Like, you're already to the North Pole. It's weird. I was
very shocked when that happened.
That's really what my problem with the way that they're rearranging a lot of these plots is. Because as a result of that, we don't get that thing for Aang. We also don't get... Honestly, I hate what they did with Sokka and Suki. Because episode 4 is
there's a reasoning
pivotal.
For that. There's a reasoning for that.
I know.
Because literally...
They want to make him like sexist.
The actor that played Sokka, and, you know, God bless his heart. I thought he did pretty good in the show with what he gave.
Everyone's trying.
He pretty much said, Sokka was sexist in the original. We wanted to tone that down. And everyone was like, well, that was the whole point. He learned a character development.
And that episode is pivotal, and you take that away from him. Okay, he no longer has the arc where he's almost on a parallel journey with Aang, learning from every other nation about how to not only be a better person, be a better friend, be a better ally, be a better combatant. He learns all this stuff from his travels, his friendship with Aang and his friendship with all these other people. And it starts when he learns to be humble and learn from others with Suki. We don't have that.
A huge part of his character is his superiority complex because he feels inferior to his father. He feels inferior to Katara. He feels inferior to Aang because he's not like this great, powerful warrior and he can't bend. So he feels useless.
And it's something he's dealing with for 3 straight seasons as he's slowly figuring out where he is. And a lot of times, he does find a spot where he works and this is what he needs to do. But it all starts when he decides, I am not going to focus on that and try to deny it. I'm going to try to be better. And we lose that for him.
And then they try to, bring it up with Sai, but it doesn't have that same emotional impact because you don't see that negative aspect.
Yeah. Sure, his dad was disappointed in him, but it's almost like the character arcs are cliff notes in this. And the main point was here, we need to show these big plot points, but not what made them important to the characters.
I understand that, and I completely agree, or at least I see your perspective. When I was talking about, character journeys throughout the show, I think the big thing, at least for Sokka, was basically leading to not only prove that I could be a warrior, but basically try to prove that, my dad was wrong about me, that I can be a good leader, that I can be a capable person. I think that was his big development throughout the season. So that's where I think they kind of changed that up a little bit.
But that was never Sokka's character. That was never his motivation. Because his dad was never you fucking suck. His dad did entrust him with the village. It was that he wouldn't let Sokka come to war.
To be fair, he was 8 at that time.
I think maybe what MV's saying is they were trying to do something different with Sokka's character, so that became his story arc, right?
Yeah, and coming from the perspective of, okay, we're going to take this as its own adaptation.
Yeah.
That's fair, and you want to take it that way, that's great.
It's a different Sokka in this,
It is a different Sokka, it's a different arc, that's fine. I just feel like...
It didn't work.
Whether or not we want to call... It didn't for me, because... It felt like no emphasis was put on these character arcs and these character moments. And it was more about, hey, let's go to here and have our set piece with this thing that everyone knows from the original show. As opposed to, if you wanted to do the full, hey, let's make it our own thing, okay, great. But I think the thing that you should have taken from the original show, at least in how you were going to do this, is focus on the characters. I don't care about these characters. That's the problem.
I feel like it just kind of suffered from the bad writing. I think, like, the changes are fine because they are trying to do something new, and that's okay.
They could have been fine.
But they could have been executed differently in a way that works better, I think, and in a way that does, like, make the character arcs make more sense. And like I said, I think the dialogue hurts it, and I think, like, like you said, it's kind of like a Cliff Notes version of a character arc, and I don't mind that the character arcs are changed because, like, you have a new version of it, and it doesn't make sense to do it 1-to-1, really. Like, it would just be like, what was it, that Alfred Hitchcock Psycho, where they just reshot it, shot for shot, and then you see just how bad it is, and it's like, we don't want that.
It was something.
Right, so it's like, doing something different is not bad, but it needs to be executed well in its own way, and I don't feel like this always was.
And they put the characters as a backseat thing to the plot.
So, could I maybe posit a thought?
Sure.
Would this maybe have potentially done a bit better if this were, say, not an adaptation of a currently existing property, but just a completely different show? Like,
so follow a different avatar, or just a different section of this world?
Like, something that's sort of Avatar-esque, but not Avatar, and has a similar vibe.
So basically what Rebel Moon is to Star Wars. Just, it's clearly not this, but it's totally this.
No, because Rebel Moon wasn't good.
I have a similar, I know exactly what you're talking about. I feel the same way about BioShock Infinite. Like, that's everyone's favorite in the series, and I didn't really care for it because it's, like, the first two games...
You also didn't finish it.
Shush. The first two games were like, they had a setting and a story, and then the third one was completely different. I'm like, this isn't BioShock, they should have called it something else. But it played the same way as the first two, so if it had been released under a different title, I just would have been like, this is a ripoff of BioShock.
But would you have felt better about it had it been under a different title, and you'd be like, oh, this maybe is a ripoff of BioShock, but maybe then on its own you wouldn't have been comparing it the whole time?
She would feel better about it if she finished the game, because it ties back in.
I know what happens. So like, now that I think about it, I'm glad it's called Infinite and not 3. So I'm like, okay, it's the same mechanics, but it is, like, a separate entry.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I think for me, like, something, maybe if this had been, like, sort of had taken some of the vibes of Avatar, but had, like, sort of taken some elements and, like, but made its own story out of it, I feel like maybe I would have liked that a little bit better. Mostly just because I don't like rush jobs, and also, I don't know, I guess for me, I guess I have a bit of nostalgia bias, and granted, like, there were some things in this that I think, like, it warrants a bit of merit, and I can definitely see, like, them trying to do their own spin on something, but it's kind of a giant risk to take a spin on something that is so well beloved by so many people.
I think, again, like, this would have been better suited for Korra or even Kyoshi, because Kyoshi is a very fast-paced story where, like, the emotional investment at the beginning of the series isn't that intense.
I'm going to be honest. I did not like... I'll be completely honest. I'm being a nerd here. I did not like how they portrayed Kyoshi in this show because they basically took Kyoshi from the memes of, bloodthirsty, murderous psychopath, where in the books, which are fantastic, the books are like, no, she's way more complex and way more rational with her decisions.
I mean, I feel like that's a thing this whole show is lacking a little bit, is the nuance. And again, a lot of the character elements. Like, we haven't really talked about Katara very much. She doesn't have a whole lot to do here the entire show until her one, like, episode at the end with the sexist master. I gotta be real. Where was all of her character throughout this show? It wasn't important to them.
Can we pause really quick? Because what the fuck was the Avatar state with the previous Avatars transforming Aang into themselves?
Yeah, they got a
What was that?
That does have a precedent in the show.
I mean, I was going to say, that happened with Roku in Season 1 when they went to the Fire Temple.
And with Kyoshi at the trial.
Oh, that is true.
Yeah, so it's not... And also, both of those were in the shrines. So
I think that was
technically
implied
canon.
to be like a more like a spirit is there, but Aang has not physically transformed into that.
No, he's physically transformed into them.
Some Korean village channeling.
No, they animated Roku and Kyoshi in those episodes.
Yeah, Kyoshi straight
and they
up
gave them their voices.
Yeah, Kyoshi straight up testifies at trial and says, "Yeah, I killed that motherfucker. I'm sorry, I'm leading into murderous Kyoshi, but it is a fun meme."
Yeah, no, that is based on precedent. But you know what? If you want to interpret the original show like you just said, go right ahead. But in this version of the show, they straight out said, "No, we're possessing you."
It was jarring too.
I mean, yeah, if you expected to catch a little boy and a giant 7'2" Amazonian snoo woman came down and started blasting you, I would be scared too.
I think we know Envy's type. Played a lot of Resident Evil, have we?
I haven't finished that game.
But like, I understand what you're saying about them wanting to like take it in do like new things, take it in a different direction. And like you said, they wanted Aang to have a bit more levity in his character. But like,
wait, what?
Part of what? Envy.
No. Levity is the opposite. Levity is kind of,
Yeah. I was like, wait, did I miss something in this entire show?
He is
hour.
very serious.
Yeah.
I thought levity was like serious.
Oh no, that's
levity
the
is
opposite.
like whimsy.
Levity is Aang.
When I think normal Aang.
Levity, I think like levitate, so like
it's
airy. Light.
Huh.
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle.
No.
G.I. Joe?
Yeah.
Anyways, so I know they wanted to treat Aang with more serious, but those moments of Aang being a child is what really contrasted like the very harsh reality that he was thrust into. Because
I completely 100%. I completely 100% agree with you. That's why I keep bringing up the mix thing. So, but yeah, that's why the original Avatar: The Last Airbender is a masterpiece and one of the best. Honestly, you could arguably make the case that it's one of the best written shows of all time.
Oh, it is.
Of any genre,
100%.
not just for a kid's show.
Also, I will say in this one, his character motivation of like being so guilt-ridden over what happened doesn't make much sense because they removed the part where he ran away.
No, they didn't.
Wait, didn't he run away?
I mean,
He
he
ran
He
away.
wasn't running away.
Yeah, he did.
No, he didn't. He flew up to take some time alone. It started storming. He tried to land and somehow hit the ocean.
So,
Yeah, I guess
what would you call
was
that?
not-
They literally said, "Hey, tomorrow we're taking you somewhere to start your training," and he was like, "I'm gonna leave for a little while." What do you call that?
He was not running away.
We're gonna have to disagree about the
He
definition
was
of running away then.
taking
Okay.
a breather.
Yeah, I would say it felt more like taking a minute to himself rather than like completely shirking his duties to go
Anyway,
skiing.
I completely agree, Kozi, with what you were saying as far as Aang's motivation and feeling of guilt in the first in the original show. I just think with this version, he obviously has extreme survivor's guilt, and it also doesn't help that literally and you can say whether or not this is good or bad storytelling, but like literally everybody in the show from his past Avatar, well, except Aang and Katara, but except Sokka and Katara, but like everybody from Boomy to the past Avatars are basically like, yeah, you need to walk a solitude path, fuck friends, and also, yeah, why weren't you there to help? You could have prevented this. And it was only Gyatso in the spirit realm that was basically like, yeah, Aang, it wasn't your fault. You would have died too. So, yeah, you're lucky that you survived.
I'm willing to give the show a couple points here because they do kind of touch on a subject of the war element that was not really as much touched upon in the original show, and that's kind of like the long-term effects that it's had on a number of people. They touched on it here and there, but not very much. I'm specifically thinking about the scene where the earthbending soldier is talking to Iroh about Ba Sing Se, and we all know that Iroh, let's be real, was a war criminal and killed a whole shit ton of people, but we love him anyway because he's a fun-loving tea guy. But like, Yeah, what about what was on the other...
He's a tea guy?
He's a tea guy,
Good
man.
for him.
Yeah, so it totally gets rid of the bodies. Look, all I'm saying...
Tea guy means trans.
Oh,
he's on
shit.
tea?
I did not realize. I meant he likes a good jasmine tea. Sorry about that. Yeah, did not think that one over. Happy day. Well, you know what? Netflix might fuck it up and we might have a Babadook situation pretty soon, so you never know.
Well, yeah, we can only hope.
What I'm saying is, I think that was a good addition there to kind of be like, yeah, no, what were the other people on the other side of this feeling, and how are they dealing with that afterwards? Because, like, yeah, a fuck ton of people have died, and yeah, there's that darkness to that. But at the same time,
I mean, that was one of the honestly, that conversation he had with the captain of that soldier patrol guy. Mm-hmm. Honestly, that was one of the few things I liked more than the original show, because in the original version of that show, it was just 5 random guys that were just, oh, we caught the former crown prince of the Fire Nation. Mm-hmm. This is going to be a big payday for us. And then, Zuko rescued him. And you can maybe say, what are the odds that a former brother of the guy that Iroh killed in Ba Sing Se is captain of the guard? But besides that, the fact they added that personal connection, and the fact that, they called him out on, what have you lost? What have you suffered in this war? And then we all know in the back of our heads what happened to his son, Liu Ten. So I think I
don't even think they were necessarily saying you haven't lost anything. It was more, look at what you've actually done.
Well, no, the soldier actually flat out said to him, you haven't lost anything. You don't know the meaning of loss. Because he doesn't know. He probably doesn't know, because they probably kept this under propaganda in the Fire Nation, that he lost his son during the Battle of Ba Sing Se. Unless that traveled in Ba Sing Se.
I think there's an argument that can be made that he knew, but, I don't think losing your son is the same as being forcefully invaded and having your home fucking pulverized constantly, as well as not just a family member dying, but huge numbers of your community and people you've known all of your life. It's not the same. Yeah, he lost his son in the war, but that cannot compare to what the Fire Nation did, and he was a huge part in it.
Yep.
Which I think it's good to bring up, because that does make more sense when it gets revealed that Iroh's in the White Lotus and all of that. It gives a stronger leg for that to stand on.
Yeah,
it almost makes you wonder. I always wondered about that. How could he be a member of the White Lotus if he was on the bad guy's side? A part of me has a fan theory where it's basically he joined the White Lotus to make up for his past mistakes, and then he just gradually.
Dude, that's not even a fan theory. That's 100%.
That's what happened, and we're getting an actual glimpse of that. We're seeing that deep regret he has. And even what he said to the soldier, they portray it in the moment as the soldier interpreting, he's saying it to him, you won't like who you find at the edge of the cliff that the word pushes you to. But he's saying that from experience, because he didn't like who he was.
Yeah. And not to bring it back to Aang a little bit, but I think part of the reason that I miss the levity of Aang in this is because when they killed the Air Nation, that's what the world really lost. I think a lot of the times, there's a lot of allegory here about the different elements and different societies and different people and different cultures. They all have to work in balance together. Each one kind of brings something to everybody else. And one of the things about the Airbenders was they were fun-loving people, and they were very happy people, and they liked to spread happiness. You killed the happiness of the world when you destroyed that nation. And then you have one person coming back who needs to rebuild that and be the embodiment of those people. And I understand him having a lot of survivor's guilt. I understand a lot of those things happening. But at the same time, I almost feel like a lot of times whenever Aang put on a happy face, a lot of times in the original show. Sometimes it was a real happy face. Sometimes it was for everybody else to try to ease the pain that everybody else was feeling at that time. And that itself also is missing here a little bit, unfortunately. I think that adds so much more.
It also makes it that much more heartbreaking whenever Aang does lose his shit and does get legit angry. Like, obviously, one of the most famous examples is when he lost Appa in season 2, and he just nearly killed people. Like, he was straight out ready to murder those sandbenders.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like what sucks even more is because we saw, Wushu 10?
Washi Tong. Wang Shi Tong. I'm sure I'm not saying that right.
Because we already saw him, I feel like we're not gonna get the library. And the library plays into such a key part of the Appa storyline.
Can we talk about the fact that Appa's not even really in here?
I know. Like, when Aang came out of the iceberg, like, almost straight up to when the Fire Nation invaded, I was just sitting there like, where the fuck is Appa?
Yeah.
Like, I know it's a lot to animate the bison and do all that kind of stuff, but, like, the reason Appa being captured and taken away and not being there feels so heavy is because, yeah, he's in the background a lot of times, but he's always there in the show, and it always feels like he's there. He's like the dog that doesn't talk, no, but it's always there, and he's always there for you.
Yeah, and he's also Aang's emotional
support animal, yeah.
And, like, his last connection to his home.
Yeah.
Like, he is a foil for Aang in that not only is Aang the last airbender, we are led to believe Appa is the last air bison.
Which still makes it weird how they made more air bison, but I'm not going to go into it. But it's a Noah's Ark situation. It just worked.
No. I think it's a Jurassic Park situation.
Oh, no, yeah.
Found a way.
They
just found more.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think canonically, they just found more.
Yeah, in Korra, they said that they found a remote part of the world where there was a bunch of them hiding, so...
Okay,
you know,
that works.
Yeah.
Hand wavy.
I'm fine with that kind of hand wavy. That's fine. You know, you mentioned spirits. I think they did a good job with Ko.
Ko was amazing.
That was very cool. Yeah, creepy, looked perfect. That whole thing was great. How did Aang leave his friends' like bodies dead in the forest for a week, and they're not dead when they get their spirits back?
I mean, I think at the most he was gone that day.
The fuck you say? He flew to the Fire Nation.
He probably went supersonic speed.
Then why is he not doing that the whole time? How is it taking them so long to get to the goddamn North Pole?
Why did he fly?
What?
Not using the glider. He was just straight up flying at points.
Yeah, they took that from Zahir from Korra. I don't care what anyone said.
Okay, I will give you in the village. In the village, he was flying, but as I said to Yin at the air temple when he's hopping around on those towers, he's not flying. He's falling with style.
Yes.
All right.
There were instances of him just straight up flying.
Yes.
And then there were also instances where he's like, oh no, I can't get up in the air. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
That was in the spirit world where you canonically cannot bend.
That's true.
Yeah.
Also trying to get off the ship. He was acting like he needed to get to the edge to jump off and catch a draft with the glider.
I mean, I think he was just trying to get away from all the shit that's already in there that would be difficult to fly around. It was a pretty packed ship.
He also acted like he needed to catch his glider before he could pull himself out of the air, which he didn't even end up doing because Sokka grabbed him.
All right, regardless of that, he can definitely float very well, but he's not particularly fast when he's floating on his own. The glider makes him fast, and he needs speed to get away from fireballs.
Why is he flying?
Because he flies.
No, that's not a thing.
Wait, are we talking with the glider or not?
No, not with the glider.
Okay.
And I would
floating
argue
with style?
The glider technically isn't flying. It is.
I know if we
exactly
go into the technical yada yada.
Gliding.
But he's controlling the updrafts and blah blah blah. It's flying for flying's sake. I'm getting way too into the technicals on some of these, I think. God, there was something I wanted. Oh, quick question to anyone. What did anyone think of Zhao?
No. Just no.
I was very disappointed.
Again, it's the middle thing. If you compare it to the original version of the show, which I forget who the voice actor was that voiced him.
Jason Isaacs.
Oh, that was Jason Isaacs? Oh,
yeah, that was Lucius Malfoy.
Oh, I forgot about that. Damn. But anyway, yeah, the original version of the show is a pompous asshole from the beginning. Whereas in this version, he's a lowly commander on a lowly part of the world that gradually snives his way to the top and thinks he can gradually get a god complex and become Fire Lord. I personally didn't mind it. I personally thought it worked for that story they tried to tell. But again, it's a different stroke for different people.
Can someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I remembered the moon spirit dying because Zhao burned it?
No, he stabbed it.
No, he burned it.
Oh, he burned it?
He burned it in the original show. He stabbed it here.
Yeah.
Honestly, either way, the thing's dead. I don't mind how he did it.
It felt weird, especially with, like, the Karuk thing. Like, my knife is getting near, which means the spirit is going to die.
I think they were making some sort of implication that you can't kill spirits with bending or something. It was just never explicitly said, which is weird because they explicitly say everything in the show.
It's also weird because they explicitly said, oh, they come and they are mortal for this one night and anything could kill them.
Oh, yeah. Here's my problem. One, I did want Zhao to be Zhao because I thought he was a decent enough... He was, like, not the perfect villain, but solid-ass villain for season 1. I had a problem because it felt... His character and his lines felt so borderline comedic to me. In how much of like a kind of a loser he was.
The last episode. Well, yeah, I will give you that.
Not just that. It was every episode, man. It was every episode. I felt like I got to be real. You know who I would have cast in this just to go full? Let's make this a comedy. Randall Park from Fresh Off the Boat. The dad. He was also in Ant-Man, the FBI agent. Does anyone know who I'm talking about? I could see him saying all these lines and killing.
No, because Randall Park irritates me he irritated me in Ant-Man and the Wasp. I didn't mind him in WandaVision, but that's a Patreon content.
I gotta be real. It would have made I just felt like would have been way better for the character.
I'm gonna be really honest. I think this interpretation of the character is they just wanted to make him pathetic.
Yeah, and I don't want to say Randall Park is pathetic, but he plays it very well.
Might have been going a little too far at that
Maybe, but he might have then been a highlight. I don't know.
I feel like it worked up until the final episode, and if we're going to talk about characterization in the final episode, they really butchered a lot. Because, like, I will say, I liked a lot of the added characterization for Iroh, but, like, the last episode where, like, he doesn't stick around and he just immediately, like, runs away.
Real quick before we talk about Iroh, I want to give a major shout out to the actor that plays him, Paul Sung-hyung Lee. I think I pronounced that right. He's living his dream life right now. He grew up as like a background actor, but then in recent years, he's basically living every nerd's dream, being in Star Wars and now in this show. So he's living the good life right now.
You also got to give him points for his own sitcom, Kim's Convenience. It was pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know he did that.
Yeah, he's the dad.
I will say, as far as him being... We're talking about Uncle Iroh, yes?
Yes.
I was less than enthused by his performance, but that's just me. I don't really think I think for me it was the line delivery.
He was trying to do the accent.
I get that, but listen, if they give you a line, don't do the accent, just do the line and make it hit.
I will say episodes 5 and 6, when they go more into the backstory of Zuko and this version's backstory of Zuko, and they show just how much of a connection Zuko and Iroh have in this version of the show. I thought that was really well done. I liked their, like obviously the meme is, Zuko isn't Ozai's son, he's Iroh's son. But in this show, they really hammer that home with what they added to the backstory and what they added to the new versions of these characters. So I did like that a lot.
I will also say, like, one of those places where I feel like the timeline doesn't really work was them making Liu Ten making his death a lot closer to the start of the series. Like, I feel like it's implied he died when Zuko was fairly young.
Yeah, in the original show, he was like a young kid.
But
like
then you gotta
8 or
hire
7.
another actor to play Kid Zuko.
I know, but, like, it made more sense for Iroh to, like, become more of a surrogate father at that point versus Zuko gave him, like, 2 words of encouragement, and he's like, "Yep, you're basically my kid now."
I mean, I'm gonna throw out there, he was the only person who actually sat down with him at the funeral. Like,
Yeah,
he
but,
wanted to connect with him. And I did like that.
They were implying they hadn't really had a connection before that.
I disagree because there's that one picture or painting in this universe where you see Iroh holding up a young boy and you think that's Liu Ten, but no, they're at the beach and Liu Ten is smiling and Iroh's holding up Zuko, so the impression is Zuko and Iroh have always had a close relationship. It just got even closer after the death of Liu Ten and Iroh went on Zuko's banishment journey with him.
I don't know, I just think it works better when Iroh, like, forms that kind of codependent relationship with Zuko, like, when he is way younger.
I think it worked here for the most part. I actually am going to give points to Dallas Liu for the most part, because I think he might have done the best acting job in this as Zuko.
Oh, yeah.
Might just be me. I think they made him a little too sympathetic early on in the series. I feel like they're preempting a lot of redemption arc stuff, but still, I think he did a good job.
If there's one thing that's been consistent with Avatar, Zuko being the best character. Zuko in the original show, best character. Yeah. Zuko in the movie, one of the only characters that had decent acting.
I mean, that was Dev Patel. I mean, he's good. He's got some good shit. You gonna see the new Monkey Man movie with him? He's directing it. Yeah.
I will say my favorite part of the entire series is the Aang stole Zuko's diary saga.
Best line read. Sassy Zuko talking about ice.
One of the resupply merchants mentioned something about kids playing with ice blocks near Senlin Pass, but he was probably mistaken.
So someone saw ice in a place where no ice should exist? Most people would call that unusual, wouldn't they, Lieutenant G? Unless they were an idiot.
Oh my goodness. I will say, out of all the performances, like, I feel like his lines were definitely the ones that I found the least stilted, so yeah, I think, like, he sort of knew what he was doing, but
I think Jet might have had better acting, but he also was only in there for the one episode, so...
I think I counted 5 scenes.
I'm gonna be really, I'm gonna be honest, I feel like, yes, I agree with Kozi. Jet definitely also had some of the better acting in this. Honestly, I feel like if I could have seen either one of them playing Zuko, to be honest. But I feel like I feel like Dallas Liu has the better voice for it, though.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And also, they were trying to be culturally accurate with the casting this time around, so they got somebody of that nationality to play
Chinese.
That nationality. Yeah.
That was nice. Appreciated that.
Yeah, like...
because the main girl that plays Katara, she's Native American, so, you know.
Yeah, but it was supposed to be specifically Inuit. But, like, that is one thing I can say, and I feel like Yin probably noticed this too, since there's a lot of, like, Chinese pop culture going on. Like, they had them wearing white at Liu Ten's funeral, which is historically accurate.
Yeah, true.
I also want to give points to Daniel Day Kim. Not my favorite Fire Lord, but dude's 55 and keeping it tight. I mean, whew. Was not expecting that.
I didn't see that part.
Oh, it's...
Should I just Google it?
Yeah, Google it. He's keeping it tight.
They show the Agni Kai scene between Zuko and Ozai, and Daniel Day Kim is absolutely ripped.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Good
just
for him.
general martial arts actors in general. They're usually pretty much very well in shape. And that's just martial artists in general.
You didn't even...
They're very well in shape.
Yeah, you didn't even need the Agni Kai, like, to see him shirtless. Like, you could tell just from, like, the scenes where, like, he wasn't wearing sleeves, just looking at, like, his arms and how the cut of the shirt was.
Wait, Daniel Day Kim, he's Korean.
Yeah, he's also from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. So that's cool. That's close enough.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, well, he grew up there. Also...
Wait, question. Were Earthbenders supposed to be, like, Indian?
I believe so.
In this version, though I think they're originally based on China, the Fire Nation's Japanese, and the Air Nation's Tibetan.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Water Tribe are more Native American stuff.
Inuit.
Oh, Inuit.
Maybe some Mongolian mixed in there too.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So it's like they got it more accurate than before, but not like perfectly accurate.
Yes, because in the last movie, Fire Nation was Indian.
Worse. It was like the main characters were white for some reason.
Oh yeah, most of them were white.
I guess we can say it was better than the movie.
Yeah, it was better than the movie. I don't think. I mean, we keep saying that. It almost doesn't even need to be said at this point. Can I throw out a second?
I mean, considering that Ozai in the movie was just basically the average,
Oh, he was so lame.
Wait, I don't even remember him.
Yeah, exactly.
He was bad. He was bad. They
might have had a better Zhao, though, because that was that dude from The Daily Show.
Zhao
actually had some presence.
In the movie.
I want to give points to a couple of the fight scenes here. Because at the very least, the fighting choreography was not bad, especially for the fight in Omashu between Aang and Zuko in the marketplace, where he can't use the fire bending because he'll get caught by the Earth Kingdom. It's like, you know what? It feels like this was inspired by a Jackie Chan movie, and I'm here for it. Good on you for doing that.
I liked the part where the old woman starts beating him up with a fan.
That was a total Jackie Chan move. My fight is causing a problem for someone else, and they're going to start smacking me. That was great.
It wasn't even causing her a problem. She thought he was committing child abuse.
Yeah.
Oh. I like Jet's fight scene quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where he, like, hooked the guy. Oh, that was so good.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they got some good stuff. And I will give point... And I honestly think the best scene in this whole show... I was wondering if they were going to do the full thing, and they did the full thing. I got to give them credit for it. Aang goes full kaiju, and I love that scene.
It looked bad.
I know you don't like the CG. It's fine. I can look so far past that at this point. I do not care. Big monster smash. Great job.
Yeah, you remember how I said in the last Airbender movie I was mixed coming out of the theater? I remember vividly. Not even coming out of the theater. I remember sitting in the theater seat watching the movie, and when they do the whole finale where it's just a giant wave that scares them away, I vividly remember getting instantly pissed. I was like, really?
Oh, right, but...
You're taking one of the coolest moments from the show and doing that?
That's also valid because they had showed it in the trailers.
The giant fish monster?
Yeah.
I don't remember that being in the trailer, but to be fair, I blocked out a lot of that movie.
No, they did, like, one shot of Aang in the giant fish monster when they first started advertising the movie.
I'm going to have to look that up to see if it's true. If it is, boo on them. But at the same time, you made the whole movie, boo on you. Yeah, you know what? I'm just happy I got my giant fish monster. Best scene in the thing. Very big, very, very... Much smash, much wow. Very good.
Yeah, but again, like, how they got there was a little, like, the change doesn't make any sense to Aang's character.
Yes, I'm trying to find stuff that I like here. Let me have this.
No!
Let me have this.
Go to Envy if you want to have it.
I get the sense you were pissed watching this. I wanted to like this. And when it was not doing what it was supposed to be doing, I wanted to hate it. Ultimately, I couldn't do either at the end of the day, despite how many negatives I've said towards this. The ultimate feeling I came away with was disappointment in that with the production, with the fight choreography, with the costumes, and with everything that was going on, they were clearly had the means to make a show that was going to feel to me like a really good adaptation. I was disappointed in that all the elements were there and they weren't used correctly. That's ultimately what I came away with. With Bebop, no, they fucked it up out the gate. And it was easy for me to just be like, well, this is not fucking Bebop. But with here, I'm like, I can see a really good live adaptation of Avatar in here. And the way they went about it didn't do it. And it was disappointing.
I really wish creative differences hadn't happened, because maybe we would have gotten that show. Yeah. Potentially, if the creators had stayed on. I
need to look at the episodes real quick. The original creators were credited on 2 episodes, Masks and Aang. That's the Blue Spirit episode and the very first episode.
Masks was good.
Yeah, because the original creators were involved, it sounds like. So
they wrote the basic outlines of the story, and that's all they were credited for. They wrote some of the teleplay and some of the story.
Yeah, and then it sounds like that's probably the point, after those 2 episodes were written, was when they were like, wow, we're seeing what everybody wants to do with the show, we're gonna dip. And that's why they're not credited anywhere else.
I feel like that ultimately says, this is a bad adaptation. If they couldn't even stomach to stay on and try to, fix it as it was train wrecking out of control.
I wouldn't call it necessarily a train wreck. This is definitely a derailing. But train wreck implies a lot of death, and I don't know. Bebop, train wreck. Death Note, train wreck.
I mean, there was a lot of death.
Okay, unintentional. I'm just, as far as disasters go.
I mean, I think your opinion and your feelings on Bebop is exactly how Kozi felt on this show. Just, she felt pure betrayal and pure disrespect.
No, there was no betrayal here, because as soon as I heard the creators left, there was no hope.
Yeah, I feel like we've had 3 different adaptations of series. I'm not going to count Death Note in here because that was a movie, because, we can count that as something else, and it was also, just horseshit out the gate. But I think we had, Bebop did not want to involve the creator at all, really, until they wanted to make him an executive producer, which means we're going to give you money to give us your seal of approval. You had one show where the creator was involved and approved shit, and people liked that show. And then you have one where the creators were on board, and then you slowly drove them off board. And I gotta be real. I think each show is reflective of, hey, how much should you involve the original people involved? You want one where everyone's going to like it because it's a fun adaptation, even if it gets some stuff weird or mixed up a little bit, but the feeling feels right and it's fun. Yeah, go with the One Piece way and get the creator involved and have them approve stuff. You want people to shit on your show because you have no idea what you're doing? Don't involve the creator at all. Make a Bebop. You want to kind of thread the needle a little bit and be like, yeah, we wanted to involve them, but they didn't like anything that we were doing. Do this, I guess.
Okay, so I can see, what the positives are for this, and I can see where, especially Envy thinks this is really good, but I think this is kind of,
I don't think he said really good. It's a 7 out of 10, he said.
That's a passing grade.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a C.
But,
D's get
that's
diplomas.
Not great.
I think this is a lot like Death Note in that aspect of, it doesn't work when you put it with the characters you're trying to adapt this to, but if you had just set it in the same universe with different characters, it does. I just feel like they could have gotten the universe feel right, even if they weren't, going all whimsical, and just had it be, different characters. Didn't try to say, this is the actual story of Avatar. Not the animated one wasn't, but portraying it as an adaptation instead of a rendition, I think.
Yeah.
Like a remaster versus a remake.
Yeah.
I hear that, but the problem is that the producers on Netflix, they want to think money, and they're not going to think an original show with original characters in the universe is going to do as well streaming-wise as, this is an adaptation of the original show. These are the characters that people... And regardless of how people thought about it, it gets the streams. It gets the views. And that's what they all care about at the end.
I mean, we'll see where it ends up.
It's definitely probably not going to be picked up for a second season, I don't think.
It's been a week. We don't know yet. It's going to be... I don't know. Bebop's response was very, very visceral out the gate. So it was clear to see the writing on the wall with
One Piece was renewed pretty quickly.
It was, but it also had almost the exact opposite
it was
opening
pretty
that Bebop did.
Both One Piece... This is ironic. Both One Piece and Bebop got news of their series 1 month after they premiered, but it was just opposite.
Yeah,
one was canned and one was renewed.
We're probably not going to know necessarily the future of the show until maybe the middle or end of March.
So, the thing is those both had very visceral reactions, whereas the most positive thing you can say for Avatar is people are going, it was fine, I guess.
Yeah. Is that enough to get a second season? Maybe, maybe not. It's a coin flip at this point,
If
honestly.
it's not going to get hate watches, or it's not going to get people who are enjoying it watching it.
Hell, even if people are enjoying it, it might get canceled.
That's also true.
Someone sneezes.
I mean, there are probably plenty of YouTubers or video essayists who have watched the series who are gonna make very long rant videos for their audiences, and then the audiences are gonna go and watch it to see what all the hubbub was about.
It already exists. I see them in my feed.
I know. One of the booktubers I watch is making a video about it and is posting one next week, so I'm like, oh, okay.
See, the thing is I don't see them unilaterally trashing it. A lot of them are just it had a lot of downs, it had a lot of ups, so it's just somewhere in the middle.
No, her reaction was viscerally upset. So I'm prepared for a roast.
Well, have fun with that.
Yeah.
I gotta be real. We've been going a while now. Do we have any? Can we load whatever you're about to say into final thoughts?
Oh, yeah. It's kind of sad because at least the videographers they really knew what they were doing.
Oh yeah, it's a stunning show.
It looks really nice.
I think that's something that we've consistently said across a lot of these adaptations is that they all look how they're supposed to look. So we've mastered how to shoot an adaptation like this. We just have to figure out how to write one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's they're good on overall vibe. They know how to capture the vibe. They just need to figure out how to make the characters the characters. They just need to know how to bring that to the table.
Yeah, and then you're gonna be printing money.
I mean, honestly, for a lot of stuff that gets panned or criticized by a lot of people, other than CGI, but Al brought that up earlier of people overworking. But a lot of times when people say something is bad nowadays, what's the main reasoning for that? The writing. That's it. The writing is arguably the writing is arguably the most important thing when it comes to a movie or a TV show, because if you don't like the writing, you're not going to probably like a lot of the show, or at least the focus of the show.
I have a suggestion for future things that would do this. I feel like production companies, or at least people making new shows, should maybe audition their writers, and the writers need to at least be fans or be familiar. Familiar.
Everyone has different vetting processes for this sort of thing. I
just feel like for something like that, people who are really passionate about it would bring so much to a project like this.
Yeah, it's worked in the past.
Yeah, and that's why them driving the creators off, they're
who would be more passionate about it?
Yeah, we know better than you who made this.
Oh no!
Yeah.
I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. They are the ones who made the thing.
You know, it was
Teach me your wisdom!
You know, it was a really interesting adaptation that's kind of exactly what you're saying. Not strictly speaking an adaptation, but more of a sequel to it. That Watchmen show from HBO. felt extremely like
you
perfectly
could tell
in the universe.
He was a fan, yeah. And that he read it like front to back like 10 trillion times.
Yeah. And
that he wanted to like do like a modern version, you know, about like issues of today, but like in that universe.
Yeah, it's also set now when it's set, as opposed to back in the 80s, but like it followed it how it followed it, but also all the characters felt right.
Yeah, and they felt like they could exist in that universe.
Yeah, and they were different because they were like 30 years older, but age changes you a little bit, but you still got the core of them.
It was like majorly a new cast for the most part. There was only like 2 of the original characters, so granted he had an easier time in terms of that.
I get that, but you also have these characters are living in a world shaped by the characters that we know.
Yeah, so I feel like the world felt true, you know, which I think is more than you can say about a lot of adaptations where it does, you know, the passion doesn't feel like it's there as much.
Yeah,
which I think is the core of it.
Yeah, I'd say Watchmen 2019 is your thesis statement for what you just said, Chibi. Get a fan of the show to make it.
I will say, too, is that I did watch some behind-the-scenes videos of the cast and crew, and believe it or not, some of the cast and crews, including the showrunners, you know, not the original Avatar showrunners, you know what I mean, the showrunners. I know what you're talking about. They all said they grew up watching the show and were fans. They did say, though, that they wanted to take a different approach. So basically, it's... I almost hate to say this. I almost feel like this is the Rian Johnson effect with The Last Jedi. He's a fan of the show, of the franchise for years, but he wanted to put his own spin on it, and the results were mixed, to put it lightly.
Envy, I feel like you and me got to do a whole episode on Star Wars movies because they're basically anime, and we gotta like have our whole thing on that at some point.
I mean,
one day.
Well, they're space samurai movies.
Yeah, that's basically anime.
Yeah.
We covered Star Wars on here. Clone Wars, that was basically anime.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, we just gonna go around real quick?
I guess we should finally do the... I mean, I have a feeling what everyone else is, but we might as well do it for posterity.
I will not give this a hard
It's a meh for most people.
Yeah, I'm in the meh area. It leans a little towards nay, but I can't leave it out of the meh area because I do see the good stuff in here. And I do see a good show in here that I really, really want. But there's also a lot in here that I'm like, why would you want this? So yeah, it's in the meh.
Yeah, I would also put it as a meh. And believe it or not, I can see like certain areas where it's like, yeah, I can see that the people who made this have watched the show and appreciated the show. The one where I would say I feel like they hated the show is Cowboy Bebop, and I don't feel that about this one. I actually do feel like the people who made this cared about the original show. I just think like maybe they weren't the most talented in terms of execution in certain ways. I think a lot of it comes down to the writing rather than the production. So I will give it a meh because like Al said, I see the bright spots, but there are also a lot of things that just were not done as well as the original. But I think overall it's pretty sufficiently made.
Yeah, I'm also gonna be like very much a meh. I'm not really leaning one way or the other. Visually, absolutely stunning. Like, colors are great and everything. Like, I am a broken record. Like, I can't not gush about how good this show looks. But I feel like the substance for the characters and a lot of the writing and the dialogue kind of were sacrificed in favor of that. Which, honestly, if you watched Avatar growing up, like, yes, the aesthetic was, like, amazing and great. But the characters were really, like, one of the big things that I feel like a lot of kids growing up were all, like, really loving about this. So that kind of really detracts from it. So I feel like had they done a little bit more work in that and like maybe had stayed a little more true to the show, I feel like this would have honestly been actually pretty perfect.
Yeah, after my, I guess, video essay that I said and the stuff I said throughout, believe me, I am not... I guess disagree is the wrong word. I can understand what everyone is saying because I, in some ways, feel a little bit of that with this show. But like I said, the whole middle thing, It's just more of, how you choose to view this show. So for me, the way I viewed this show was, this is an interesting alternate universe take on this show that I would be interested to see how they change and how they adapt. Because obviously, if they do a season 2, they would have to show Toph. And I would be really interested to see how they do Toph in this version of the show. But yeah, it's a light yay for me. I completely understand why people are mixed on it to negative, but I just view it as a slightly above average watch.
Yeah, kind of like everybody has been saying, I'm a meh to light nay. Like, it's a really pretty show and it tastes like Avatar, but it's missing some of the things that made it Avatar.
Oh, it's missing the seasoning.
Oh my god. Wait, just like a little funny aside, we were constantly complaining about how there are supposed to be like really impactful moments where they're like shouting, but they're speaking at like a normal volume. And we both forgot, like, how to describe that level of voice. So I'm like, room temperature voice. It's room temperature volume.
That is strangely accurate.
I'm a hard fucking nay. Like, it just frustrated me, and beyond that, I feel like as an adaptation, it fails because, like, they were trying to change stuff to add, like, something to the story, but, like, there's no point to watching this as it stands. Like, it really doesn't add anything. Like, if you want something Avatar flavored, at that point, why not just go watch the original? Because it's just not giving.
I'm gonna be real with you. I may go rewatch the show after this. Not this, but the real one.
Exactly.
Not like to cleanse my palate, just because I'm thinking about it all again, and it is such a good show. Yeah.
Hey, I have both this show and Korra on Blu-ray, so if you ever want to borrow them, go right ahead.
It's still on Netflix. It's going to be very easy to find it. But, like, beyond that, we should talk about next week. So, next week, let me ask everybody something. How often do you think about the Roman Empire?
Enough.
I think about the Ides of March all the time.
Well, there we go. We're finally doing the Ides of March. It's Oops All Caesars, everybody. Sort of, almost, kind of. We're doing a little bit of a change up because we had some people with some problems with one of these shows. So, what do we have coming up? We wanted to do something that includes a bunch of Caesars. If you hadn't heard last week, Oops All Caesars, because of Cece's idea. It's probably a terrible idea as a result of that. But we're going to be doing stuff with characters named Caesars. We're starting with next week, Nobunaga the Fool, which involves, let me see if I remember this. Nobunaga Oda, Joan of Arc, Caesar, some other dude, and then Gundams. I don't know what the fuck this is about, but I'm into it already. After that, we got Fate Extra Encore, or Last Encore, sorry, which, it's a Fate show. I mean, we know what we're getting into. Historical characters doing a bunch of shit.
It's a Fate show based off of a PSP dungeon crawling game. It's Fate at its purest batshit insanity.
That sounds great, but let's be real. Fate at its purest batshit insanity is Carnival Phantasm. But if this is a close second, I'm down for it. After that, we switched out Girls und Panzer, and we're instead of going full Roman with Therma Romae. A show about... I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. My Latin's rusty.
I believe it's like Thermae Romae.
Thermae Romae. A story about a Roman architect transported to modern-day Japan to learn about bathhouses so he can go back to Rome and do bathhouse stuff. It's gonna be weird. And I'm down.
There's actually a Caesar in it.
Well, fantastic.
Emperor Hadrian.
We still have
Caesar.
We still have Caesar, but not only do we have Caesar, we have Rome itself. And finally, we gotta end with battle tendencies. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure with probably the most famous anime
Best Joe
Caesar
Bro
of
of all time.
Yeah, hell
Best Joe Bro of all time.
I was not expecting this, but I think this is the month I'm looking forward to the most. God damn it. We're about to get weird in a good way. Not like last
Yeah, honestly,
All right.
like, especially with the Roman bathhouse thing coming in, like, when we were looking at that a little bit, like, I am very excited for that.
This is gonna be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. We hope you're all looking forward to it. Come back next week for Nobunaga Oda in a Gundam. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon for notifications. If you enjoy this video, give us a like, and if you haven't already, check out some of our previous episodes, our daily gaming videos, or our parody series Madoka Magically Abridged. See you next time!